Welcome ladies and gents, I am back for another video. Today I was asked, how the hell do you use OBS? So I'm here to answer that question. So, OBS, for those who don't know, is a piece of recording software for live streaming and video recording. I use it in my gaming channel, The Crazed Gamer, to record game footage, as well as Camtasia whenever I cannot get game to run above 30 FPS, which is quite rare. So, without further ado, here is OBS. And what we're going to be doing here is showing you how to configure it once you've downloaded it. Download links are in the description, by the way. But anyways, so I'm going to be showing you all the settings, how things work around here, and how we actually make OBS tick. Now, there are some small issues with my current version of OBS where there is a random crashing issue, so I won't be actually recording with Camtasia. And also, Camtasia doesn't like hooking into 3D applications or games whilst those are in full screen mode, so we won't be doing that either. But OBS, however, that loves it. So, what I'm going to do is, first off, I'm just going to remove this for a moment, because we don't need those items. So, when you actually first open up OBS, it will look like this, completely blank, nothing there. And you'll see we have buttons down here and options. So, that's your recording volume. If you have a microphone installed, the top half of this will turn red, just as this has here with the system audio devices. And that means that there's a microphone installed and it's ready to use. Below that's a bar. This bar here shows you how loud something is. With the microphone, if it's all the way up here, it's going to start clipping. With the audio device here, if that goes all the way up, it means it's way too loud. Or you have anomalous audio signals out of the two. And then we have different options for live streaming, recording, also replay buffers if you have a certain set of plugins, which I just so happen to do. I also have options for previewing an item, so if I were to click that, it will give me a preview of whatever's being recorded. And for the exit button, which closes OBS, plugins, which we have lots of here, so stuff like that, game capture plugins, and all sorts of other cool, very useful tools. And global sources, which we'll not go into detail on because that's not required to start this service working. However, we do need to go into settings for the first time setup. Now, what we have is, I haven't actually run this all the way back to default, but what we do have here is we have the language, which they have pretty much every single one in here known to man, including ones like, for example, Thai, Turkish, Russian, Cyrillic, that one, and Polish, Portuguese, Romanian, Slovenian, Slovakian, you know, the usual. Then you can have profile settings as well. These are practically just we're not going to touch these at all, so we're going to just leave those as they are. Now, in the general settings, we don't exactly need to change anything unless you want to change your language. So we're going to go down to the encoding tab. Now, this is where things get fun, because as it goes, a lot of these settings are disabled in the standard version of OBS for these three here. Now, here's where things get fun, because I do have lots of different plugins moved onto OBS. So, first off, you'll notice I'm not using the standard encoder, which would be X264, like it is here. The reason for that is because I have a graphics card installed in my machine, Radeon 7950. So I can use the video encoding engine built into the graphics card to actually record with, and that decreases the amount of impact that OBS has on the machine's performance, usually between 1 to 3 frames per second, whereas my X264 encoder can drop as many as 20, and that's in really intense scenes. So, yep, much less of a performance impact with the NDVCE encoding engine. If you have an NVIDIA graphics card, however, you can use either QuickSync or NVENC. And then you can use the OpenCL extensions, which are definitely recommended, especially for empty cards, because they are very good at OpenCL acceleration. Now, Next thing we're going to talk about is the constant buffer rate. So what we need to do is we need to enable that. We can also enable CBR padding and also use a custom buffer size. Now this bit is not strictly necessary, but it does help in the quality of the video. The higher the bitrate, the more pretty your video looks, but there's a limit because you will also get some AV lag with that. So I recommend a maximum of 3,500 to 4,000. If you are going to be live streaming, 3,500 is an absolute maximum, because any higher than that and you're going to really start dropping frames. So that's pretty much that. We don't need to touch the audio encoding. Once it's in, so like the settings we have here, which are the AAC codec at 48 kHz, the 160 bitrate, and also in stereo because, well, stereo audio. Anyone with one of those headsets would be pretty peeved that they can only hear something through the left-hand side. So, once you have your settings in, hit apply. Then go to your broadcast settings. And in here, we have different settings for things like live streams or a file output only mode. Now, I do have mine set to live stream. I do have a Twitch channel. I'll also link that in the description. Now, in here we have an option for a stream key for Twitch. Now, I have a Twitch account, like I just said. And what you do here is you pick the server that is the closest to you. Now, I live in England. To be more specific, my geographical location is Leeds, England. So I'm quite close to the London servers. Only a couple hundred miles, if you want me to be exact-ish. So we use the London server because that's got the fastest ping time and the lowest overall latency, and I'm also less likely to drop frames because we get the best bandwidth from that one. And of course, lowest latency, like I've already said. Now, we will take our stream key from the Twitch account. We will apply that, and then we will also enable auto reconnect. Then timeout in case we need it, and of course a delay. And we'll also have replay buffer lengths and the buffer file path. In the next step, I'll be showing you how to configure the video setting. So welcome back from your little intermission. Now, I said we were going to do some of the work on the video settings. Now, that is very true. So, if you have multiple GPUs in your machine or multiple monitors attached, your video adapters will always vary. Now, in my machine, I only have one adapter at the moment, or one GPU. So it will select the default, which is, of course, GPU 0 on my AMD Radeon HD 7950. Now, as for the base resolution, you want to pretty much leave this alone if you can help it. Because altering this alters the way that the software will record, and sometimes it can be a little bit tricky to set up properly. Now, you can either leave it as the base resolution, or you can click this monitor button. Now, I'm not going to because it screws around with my resolution and it turns it to 1536 by 864, which would be a 1.25 times resolution downscale. And I'm not interested in that. I would prefer to have full 1080 instead of upscaling it to 1080i. Now, in the terms of resolution downscale, but however, we have different settings all the way to 640 by 360 or 3 times resolution downscale. The reason why we would want to use this is if we have to compress the video. You want to decrease the size of the video to make it fit into something. Now, usually in YouTube videos that wouldn't happen. You wouldn't need to. This can be pretty much left there. As for frame rate, this does impact performance. So you want to make sure that your machine is capable of running as constantly at that set FPS before you can actually use it. So usually you want it between 24 and 30 frames per second. The lower, the more cinematic according to Ubisoft. But the higher, the less cinematic, and actually the smoother it is. If you want smooth gameplay footage, 60 FPS is your best bet. Moving on to audio, we have different settings for the desktop audio devices, microphones, or any auxiliary audio devices. Like if we were to hook up an MP3 player so we could have random music in the background, yeah, could do that. Very possible. Now, how this works is we have a drop-down menu here with all of our sound devices for the audio capture. Now, if I was to set this one, I would have it set to speakers or higher definition audio device, which just so happens to be the one that makes this noise when you hit the volume slider. And for the microphone, I'm talking through it at the moment, and it would just so happen to be this one. And we can re-initialize it as many times as we like and all sorts of other stuff. I normally leave this disabled because I don't talk very much through my gaming videos. If I am to talk through one, I'll use Camtasia if I cannot achieve 30 frames per second to 60 frames per second perfectly. But I normally can, therefore I will. Sometimes enable the push to talk setting in the hotkeys. But I normally leave that disabled just for the sake of decreasing the amount of noise in my videos and improving the content, because there is a bit of noise that gets introduced with the microphone. So once you've changed your settings, always hit apply or go to a new setting and click yes. Now here we are in the audio. If you want to push to talk key, you can use one very happily. All you need to do is check this box that says use push to talk, and then in the push to talk setting here we can just basically use a key. So if I was to use shift, for example, because I don't use right shift very often, I could choose shift as a push to talk key, and I could just basically hit shift, talk, let go shift, and it mutes it. It mutes your microphone. Now, if you want to be speedy with your settings and you want to be able to record and stop very, very quickly, hotkeys are great. They are an absolute lifesaver. Now, I'm actually going to set some in. So what you do to set a hotkey is you click on the one you want. So for example, if I want to do my start stream, I'll do that, press down the keys that I want, and that's how things are done here. Pretty simple. If you make a mistake, you can just hit clear and it will just clear it, as you just saw that. We're going to hit apply again. Once we've got all our settings in, just whack apply and then go into the next settings. Now, advanced. Quick warning, you don't want to touch most of these settings unless you really are having performance issues or ridiculous amounts of frame dropping and your internet connection is not the problem. You're running a reasonably high bandwidth scenario where you're using an Ethernet cable or network cable directly into a router, straight out to a streaming server, and your ISP is not throttling your upload speed like Virgin Media does with their lower end packages in Britain. Hashtag it's not broadband 2015. Now, things you don't want to touch. Process, priority class. The higher this is, the more of a performance impact you are going to get. No ifs, ands or buts. It's going to decrease the amount of performance your application gets, because you are basically taking more and more of the system's resources and directing them straight at the screen recording software, which means you have less resources for the game, which means that that game will then run slower. You will decrease the amount of performance you're going to perceive. Now, one thing that does sometimes help is disabling the encoding while previewing. This may help if you are having issues whilst previewing a video clip and you are having high encoding chip usage. Usually I sort of kind of keep that disabled, but you can enable or disable that one. I also do allow other modifier keys on the hotkey settings, and that does tend to come in handy. So, one thing I will, next part is, we don't really need to use anything in the X264 CPU presets because I don't use these. But if you do, you want it somewhere around the range of faster to ultra fast. And then your encoding profile can be main, but you must, and this is one that I had to set in as well, for live streaming you must have a keyframe interval of 2 seconds. I don't use the CFR setting, I don't use custom X264 encoder settings. Now if you do have some settings that will increase the performance of your recording whilst not impacting the quality very much, do click this, add the parameters, click apply, and you'll be well on your way to a great YouTube career. You can allow 61 to 120 FPS settings, but it's not required. You don't need to. If you're going to try recording in 120 FPS, you better have a capture card capable of it, or some form of redundant hardware in your machine that you can then use to do that. So for example, an extra graphic card that you can then use to capture from another, using some really random looping tricks. But anyways, The audio is going to use the same timestamp as the video does, as this just decreases some of the latency. If you are having issues with the audio latency, which sometimes happens, you can change the audio synchronization offset, and you can also enable the mic QPC timestamps. Not required, but possibly if you are having issues with that. Please excuse me, my cat is going crazy, she wants to sit with me, so I'm going to let her. Now, automatic low latency mode for network is not necessary unless you have got your own streaming server or something along those lines. You can use it. Sometimes it can be recommended, but in OBS it's just not needed. You don't absolutely have to use that setting. Now, once that's done, hit apply, go to your next. Now, NVIDIA QuickSync. I don't have an NVIDIA graphics card, so I cannot use this. As you can see, all the settings are grayed out, and they are completely inaccessible to me. However, I did mention a couple of times that I have an AMD GPU, so I can, and do, use the AMD VCE encoder, or the video encoding engine. I always have it set to between balanced and quality, just to make sure that everything looks nice. And that's pretty much all I need to do to get this working. Now, as things go, DirectX, I usually wouldn't recommend leaving that forced to post. I normally have it on DX11 because it's the most performance. Now, I'm going to actually set that to 40. I'm going to disable frame skipping. That's just my personal preference. And then microphone noise gate, so I'm going to apply the changes anyways. Microphone noise gate we're not going to touch. We don't need to. That can stay as its default levels. And we are not going to enable it either because I don't exactly need it. So, now that we're done configuring OBS to work best with our machine, as we have here, we can start adding scenes, adding sources, and recording. So, you might have noticed that I have also running in the background. Now that's key for this part, because what we're going to do is we're going to right click on the scenes box, click add scene. We're going to name it, like so, and then we're going to right click on the sources boxes, go to add, and then we're going to go to game capture. Name it again, and here we go. You should be greeted by this window. Sometimes you might need to hit refresh if you've just started the application you're intending to record from, but if not, it should straight away appear, like mine has, as you can see right there. So we're going to do that. Sometimes I recommend hitting stretch image to screen, but only if the game resolution is lower than your recording resolution, but sometimes you will get some visual artifacts and anomalies that just don't look very nice. So be a little bit wary of that, and usually go for a maximum of about 1.5 to 2 times smaller than your actual screen resolution, because then you won't get as many glitches, artifacting or anything like that within the video recording. So I'm going to hit OK. Everything is ready. So if I was to hit preview stream, at the moment it will go blank, I can promise that right off the bat. Now, as you can see, we are at 60 frames per second, we're well within the encoding settings, there are no drop frames, which is absolutely fantastic. Now, if I just opened up this, and did this, as you can see, right there, it was working perfectly. Now, if I just stop preview, now you're not going to be able to see most of what's going on until I hit start recording. That's now recording also. I'm going to just basically load something up. And of course there will be a bit of a blank screen moment here. I'll probably put an image in just to make things look a little bit better. But yeah, as it goes, everything appears to be working fine. OBS will be recording. So I'm just going to do something in here. Now I don't have sound on for the game because some items can be copyrighted. There is copyrighted material within OSU in terms of music. So I want to be a little bit wary of that. So I'm just going to do stuff. Here you go, a little bit of sound. Actually I'm going to leave that on. So here you go. So I will add images for you guys, just to make that look a bit more interesting. and we're going to exit that, stop recording, and the theory is that once we've done that and we've stopped recording and all that brilliant jazz, we'll go into the videos set folder, and there should be video comes up somewhere. Now all of mine are set to save in MP4 format, and that's one thing also I'm going to show you. Because in OBS, the default settings for saves is in AVI format. So you want to change the format if necessary. Now I did, and so that I could get slightly better control over my files so I could edit them a little bit easier, especially when I'm recording in 30 frames per second and editing them together. For example, one of my comparison videos. Anyways, so what we do is we find a save path, and then it will be called $T dot and then the name of the video file. Now the best ones are .mp4, .flv and .avi. They're the best ones. They work the best. AVI tends to be a lot larger than MP4, however, so be aware of that whilst you're using OBS. Now, going back to my videos folder, as you can see there's some of my clips there and all sorts of other great jazz. One of these should be a working clip, hopefully. It's the theory, and it doesn't look like it is. Some of these may have failed in terms of recording, however, some of them won't have. Wow, that's significantly loud. So as you can see, this is one of the maps that I, well, one of the things, I think this is actually the, no it's not. But yeah, there is quite a few here. So I'll try and open, well actually I have an idea. Date added. Most recent should be one of these. I think it's probably this one then. But as you can see, it has actually recorded. It's recorded fine. It's all in glorious 60 frames per second, even though you won't be able to see that. But yes, it's working perfectly. Even right down to the audio at the very end of the clip, as you can hear. And it looks nice and tidy. There's hardly any pixelation. And that's the settings that I use for OBS to make sure it works and that it's going to be smooth. So, I hope this video has become quite useful for you guys. I will be doing some live streaming on my Twitch channel, which I will link in the description, alongside the YouTube channel that most of my OSU videos get uploaded to, alongside some gaming clips like Minecraft, Dying Light. I might even be doing some Counter-Strike Global Offensive soon as well. I'm stroking my cat thinking on that one. So yeah, we shall be doing some of that. So thanks very much for watching. Please subscribe, rate and comment, and if you want to see me do more tutorial videos such as this, then just let me know. Send me a PM over YouTube and I'll get straight onto it for you guys. Again, thanks.